What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Figured I'd pop out on the deck for my second video today. I posted this on Twitter, and it seems like a lot of people were very passionate about it. So I figured I'd talk about it, give my thoughts on what ESPN projects the New York Giants players to do this season, in according to stats, and as well as where they rank the New York Giants defense. And unsurprising to most, the New York Giants were ranked incredibly low. And to be fair, we don't have much of a leg to stand on. Over the last 3 years, the New York Giants have won 12 games, so I expect the media to continue to bash the New York Giants until proven otherwise. But I kind of wanted to go over some of the stat projections for all the players that they had for the New York Giants and where they think they will finish. Now, I'm assuming that these projections are based off of 16 games, being that is what we should expect these players to play going in. Now, of course, Evan Ingram has an injury history, Sterling Shepard has an injury history, so on and so forth. And the receiver projections are kind of hard to project. And I'm probably going to do a video on this as the season gets closer of my official stat projections. But I kind of wanted to talk about what ESPN thinks about our players and our talent. And I think they definitely sold us short on offense as well as defense. I'll speak on the defense in a little bit. But on the offensive end, they said that Saquon Barkley is going to have about 1,600 scrimmage yards. I think it was about, a little over 1,100 yards rushing, about 450 yards receiving, I think 11 combined touchdowns. Now, touchdowns are hard to predict because you don't know how the New York Giants are going to use their running backs around the goal line, things like that. So I'm going to speak on, for the most part, the yards when it comes to Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley in his rookie season, behind a subpar offensive line, led the league in scrimmage yards with over 2,000. Last year, I don't know his scrimmage yards off the top of my head, but he was probably at least 1,400 or thereabouts, and he was hurt for the majority of the season and missed some time. If they are predicting Saquon Barkley to only have 1,600 scrimmage yards this year, just over 1,100 yards rushing, I think that is really underrating the New York Giants, and maybe it shouldn't surprise us why the media has us ranked as low as they do in the power rankings if they think these New York Giants players are going to have, this poor of a season. To me, Saquon Barkley should have a minimum of 1,850 scrimmage yards. I think he's going to have at least 2,000. I think Saquon Barkley's going to have a big year. I don't think people are taking into account how improved this offensive line hopefully should be, not to mention Jason Garrett's offense. If you look back at the course of history, is going to feed Saquon Barkley. Ezekiel Elliott has more yards, I think more carries or more yards than any other running back since he's entered the league, and that is including time missed due to suspension. Saquon Barkley is going to get all the work he can handle, and I think he's going to have at least 1,400 yards rushing and at least 500 yards receiving at a bare minimum. So I think they definitely undersold Saquon Barkley with their projections. Now, one thing I will say in fairness, when I look at the ESPN projections in the past, because I do play fantasy football, they tend to be more on the conservative side. But I think they were a little too conservative with most of the New York Giants. The next guy we're going to talk about is the quarterback, and that being Daniel Jones. They said Daniel Jones is going to have a dramatic increase in terms of yardage. Last year, I think he had just over 3,000 yards passing. They have him going for 3,700, which only makes sense. He's going to be playing a full 16-game schedule. Last year, I think he only played 12. He only had 12 starts. He came in, garbage time for one game. But for the most part, he only had 12 starts last year with the New York Giants, where he had 3,000 yards. So the 3,700 yards, I think, is a fair expectation. I think he may be a little bit closer to 4,000, but I think we're talking between 3,700 and 4,000 yards this year for Daniel Jones, if I had to guess right now, not knowing how they're going to use the offense. But I do think they're going to feature Saquon Barkley a lot more. With that being said, the total touchdowns, to me, was way lower than it should have been. Last year, Daniel Jones had 24 touchdowns in the air, 2 touchdowns on the ground for 26 combined touchdowns, and he threw 12 interceptions. ESPN has him going for 27 combined touchdowns. So one more touchdown when he throws for 700 more yards, and he plays 4 more games. Doesn't really add up to me. I think Daniel Jones is going to throw for at least 27 touchdowns, and he'll probably have at least 30 combined touchdowns. But I think he's going to be between 28 and 31 or 32 touchdowns through the air this year. Last year, if you average out what he did over the first 12, he would have projected to throw for 30 touchdowns. And nobody would be talking about Daniel Jones as poorly as they are if he had done that, at least in my opinion. Definitely has some things he needs to work on, though, in the turnover department. But I think they undersold him on the yardage as well as the touchdown projections. As far as the wide receivers go, I'm not going to get into every individual, but they had Evan Ingram, I think, at about 670. The leading receiver in terms of yardage was Golden Tate with 803 yards receiving. He was the only receiver with over 800 yards, and he just barely eclipsed it, according to ESPN's projections. I don't think Darius Slayton is going to regress. They think that he will. He had 777 yards according to their projections with only, I think, 5 touchdowns. I think Slayton's going to have a much better year than that. I think he fits this offense very well. And if these guys stay healthy, I think they'll have at least one 1,000-yard receiver, if not 2. That's just my prediction. Now, of course, there could be injuries. You cannot predict that. But I thought they were a little too conservative again with the wide receiver predictions. And then when it came to the defense, they had the New York Giants ranked 31st overall, only in front of the Carolina Panthers at 32. Now, don't get me wrong, the New York Giants have a horrible defense last year. They had a horrible defense, but they ranked even higher last year than what ESPN is projecting this year. They ranked 30th last year in total defense. They have them at 31 for the 2020 season. Explain to me how that makes any sense. They went out there, they brought in James Bradbury, who's an upgrade over an aging Janoris Jenkins. I think Blake Martinez, yes, I said his name right finally. I think Blake Martinez is definitely an upgrade over Alec Ogletree. They drafted Xavier McKinney, which should only help the defense. You have Peppers healthy. All these young guys that are now going to be in their second and third seasons are more matured. This defense is going to be better than 31. Now, am I going to tell you it's going to be league average? Probably not. But I think they're going to take a step forward. Now, I recognize they're learning a new defensive scheme, and they got to prove it before we say anything. And I'm not going into the year with huge expectations for this defense or even huge expectations for this offense. But I think the defense should be probably 25, 24. I think maybe 26. I think 31 is way too low. I think their stats for the offense were way too low. I believe in this offense if they can remain healthy, which is a huge if, being that they have players such as Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram, who I just mentioned earlier, who have injury concerns. But if they could stay healthy, I see no reason as to why that this New York Giants offense can't be in the top half of the league with an improved offensive line and a scheme that I think fits Daniel Jones' skill set pretty well. But we're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out, obviously, with the shortened offseason. But that's for everybody. But not everybody's learning a new offense and defense. I recognize that. But yeah, I just wanted to speak on it, give my opinion. I think ESPN is selling the Giants way too low. I'm not telling you guys they're going to the playoffs. I'm not telling you we're going to be world beaters this year. But I think they're going to be a lot better than what the so-called experts think about the New York Giants this year. I think they're going to be competitive. I think they're going to play teams tough. And I think that their statistics will be much higher than what was projected by ESPN and everybody else that seems to have us 30 or 31 in the power rankings. But that's just my thoughts. I think the New York Giants may surprise some people this year. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.